familiar face, but someone we don't see too often is James Russell in tonight for Sam Spoon, who's a bit under the weather. Good evening to you, James.
Evening.
Let's talk hockey. Let's talk Bacchus, because a number of people were saying this is the time they're going to slip up.
Yep.
Today, they're going down to lose. They're going to lose. Vikings A will be the new favourites for the title. This results exactly why Bacchus are champions, isn't it? Vikings A2, Bacchus A3, back on top in the PwC Men's Premier League.
Yeah, a lot of people did say that, and I said it as well. I said it in the paper this week that I thought Bacchus might struggle this season. They had a tough run of results. Well, not a tough run of results because they've won every game, but they haven't won by the margins that we used to see in Bacchus win by. And Vikings on the counter side have been winning by enormous margins. And this year, Bacchus haven't lost a game for 5 years. Thought this year might be the year that they did it. Valkyries haven't looked perhaps as strong as they have in the past. We wondered whether this was going to be the game that they lost. But absolutely, as you say, early goal from Andy Whiting settled the nerves and allowed Bacchus to run away with it. Tom Wilson managed to get one back in the first half. I think Andy scored all three of them in the end. Vikings were 2-1 up at half-time. They scored again in the second half, put themselves 3-1 up.
Bacchus were 3-1 up, yeah.
And Tom Wilson got one back in the last minute, slightly too late to mount a comeback. But as you say, Bacchus doing what they do best and proving that they are certainly clear favourites for the title this year.
That is a heck of a statement, isn't it? Not so good for the Bacchus B team, but a very good result for Ramsey A. 4-1 winners. Yeah,
it was a pretty end-to-end stuff in that game. I saw the last 10 minutes of it, and Bacchus B certainly hadn't given up at that point, even if the scoreline was perhaps a bit beyond them. 3-0 up at half-time, Ramsey were. Thomas Tsitsos, Jordan Parkinson, Sam Moffat and Billy Kane scoring in the second half for Ramsey. Don't have Bacchus B scorer, I'm afraid, so I can't give you that one. But good game for Ramsey. They'll be pleased with that.
Yeah, they will indeed. And Valkyries A9, Vikings B0. Quite emphatic from Valkyries, of course, who held Bacchus a week ago.
They did, and they've looked good for the last few weeks, and it's another solid result for them. Kieran Gell with 3, Juan Killier, Greg Miller with 2. Juan had 2 as well. Steve Cottier and Tim Stevenson, the scorers for Valkyries, in a pretty convincing performance against the Vikings B side that have struggled a bit, and having lost to Bacchus B, they're probably going to struggle to keep their position in that league, but it's all going to come down to that second fixture between them and Bacchus second string.
Isn't it just? Let's move on to Men's Division 1. Castletown A3, Valkyries B1, Bacchus Colts 0, Harlequins A10 and Vikings C2, Saracens A4.
There's some really interesting scorelines in there. Castletown's game against Valkyries almost looked like an upset for a while. Valkyries scored first with Lewis Porter, putting them in the lead just before half-time. There was a sort of fairly wild swing from the Valkyries defence that earned them a yellow card and earned Castletown a short corner, which Don Stewart managed to convert from to bring Castletown back even. I didn't see the second half, but I understand that Castletown basically fought back in the second half using that one-man advantage they had for the first 10 minutes. Don Stewart scored 2, Danny Knifton scored 1 in the end, Castletown getting the 2 points to keep themselves top of the table. Harlequins had a fairly straightforward afternoon against Bacchus Colts, 2 for Pete Nuttall, 3 for our very own Chris Cave, 2 for Paul Nuttall, Nick Hamer, George Radcliffe and Stephen Arnold sharing the goals all round. Surprising result of the day, perhaps. Saracens A4, Vikings C2. Saracens, really, you wouldn't have expected them to win that match. Ash Osborne scored both the goals for Vikings in fairly quick succession, but Saracens 4 scorers, George Powell with a screamer, Andy Winstanley, Tom Robertson, Tom Dalton Browns, who I'm told was disappointing, but it was George Powell that said that to me. So
take it with a pinch of salt.
Good result for Saracens, though. I mean, they haven't lost a game yet this season. They're going to meet Castletown next week. I suspect Castletown are the stronger side, but it's going to be interesting.
Certainly is. Let's move on to Division 2. One match there. Harlequins B1, Ramsey B7. Been asked to give the Harlequins B team a big shout out. They played with 9 men from the start because of injury and illness. They finished with 8 due to an injury as well. And, according to this message, they did the club proud. But obviously Ramsey won the day.
It's an impossible position, that really.
Only 2-0 at half-time.
Yeah, it's when you've got 9 men, you're never going to get anywhere. And when you've got 8, you're going to get even slightly less further. But they did well to get a goal, to be honest. Josh Nuttall getting the goal for them. Ramsey B, they will be pleased with their performance. Patrick Cooper-Woods with 2, Dan Stevenson, Daniel Hurd, Rod Smith, James Aitchison and Thomas Hurd again sharing the goals all round. Plenty of goal scorers this week.
Let's move to the PwC Women's Premier League because an emphatic win for the champions Vikings A. They put 15 past Harlequins without reply.
Yeah, you can't really do very much. You can't really do very much other than say that's a good day for Vikings and a bad day for Harlequins. Kim Carney with 6, Georgia Foxton with 4, Danny Coombs with 2, Kate Yerrick with 2, and Kirsty Cooper. Another emphatic performance from Vikings. It's difficult to see at this point how anything's going to upset them this year.
Valkars A3, Backers A0. That's quite an emphatic result as well. And Ramsey edging out Castletown 1-0.
Yeah, the Valkars result's a good one for Valkars. Backers are always capable of producing an upset, just don't quite seem to have that edge to do it at the moment. But so that would have been a tough game, and I bet it was pretty close as well. Carmina Cavander with 2 and Imogen Manning.
We've had a text in actually, James. Yeah, we've had a text in just to say credit to Valkars, attacked strong. They were 3-0 up early on. Backers came into their own, created multiple chances, but couldn't get the ball in the net.
Yeah, I've only seen Backers play once this season, but that would sum up that game as well. They do create their chances. They just don't seem to have that player up front that can actually take the final big hit that puts the ball in the back of the net. But there's a lot of positives there for Backers. There's some good players coming through there. They're going to get stronger. Valkyries to me are almost underperforming. They get good results, but they've got some really strong players there, and it's that first game of the season when they played Vikings and didn't get a result out of it. I kind of feeling if they'd had a chance to get into their stride, Vikings do, because they go away to these Vars matches, whereas Valkyries turn up to that match having not played together as a squad unless they were doing it in friendlies for months. The other game, as you say, Ramsey A1, Castletown A0, was a pretty scrappy match, to be honest. Victoria Garner got the one goal that mattered. It was end to end, and Castletown had their chances. They could have scored. It could have been very even. Ramsey had another goal which I disallowed. I've checked the rules. I possibly did it in the wrong. It doesn't matter now. But Ramsey came away with the 2 points that they would have expected to come away from. It was perhaps closer than they might have expected.
And let's very quickly just have a quick look at Division 1. Saracens A3, Castletown B3, Valkars B0, Backers Colts 2, and Vikings B3, Ramsey B0. Oh, actually, one other. Harlequins B1, Vikings C3.
Yeah, the Saracens-Castletown game was all Castletown in the first half and mostly Saracens in the second half. Castletown were 2-0 up at half-time. Betty Cubban, Danielle Oates and Glesney Corney their scorers. Sophie Howland, Alana White and Dulcie Tia, the scorers for Saracens. Backers Colts will be happy with extending their lead at the top. Sharon Pope and Ros Lynch, the scorers for Backers Colts. Vikings B back to winning ways. They're gonna chase for Backers for the title. Jan Carney, Mel Schick, and Daisy Loader, the scorers for Vikings B, and Valkyries C scorers Helen Freer and Helen Withers with 2. And
Helen Withers playing up front instead of her usual position, I'm told, today.
Indeed, and doing a good job of it as well. If they've managed to score, she's managed to score a couple of goals. Emily Middleton was the scorers for Harlequins B. Important result there was the Backers Colts Valkyries B1, because Valkyries B, I think, were second in the table, and they were pretty impressive when I saw them play on Tuesday night. So Backers did well to put 2 goals past them.
James, thanks very much indeed. Just 2 results in the Under-16s League. Backers 0, Valkyries 10, and Saracens 2, Vikings 0. James Russell, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.